My name is Russell Shoemaker. I sold technology to the world, back when there was technology, and people to sell it to. For weeks, I'd been hearing all sorts of theories about the fall. According to J.D., God took away everything, people and technology. He wiped the slate clean so we could start over, put our faith back in Him, not machines. I was skeptical, to say the least, but as I listened to J.D.'s story, I saw parallels to my own life.
I was a workaholic. I made good money selling life insurance, but spent more time on the road than at home. I took my family for granted.
When his wife got fed up and left him, she took custody of their son, Jonah.
That was my wake-up call. Work meant nothing. The only thing I lived for was the one day a week I got my boy.
Hearing J.D. go on about their Sunday fishing trips, I was jealous. Never had a ritual like that with Kizzy. Every parent's worst nightmare is losing a child.
Imagine seeing your pride and joy disintegrate right before your eyes.
J.D. did what I would have done. Lost all hope. Hit rock bottom.
God, why me? Once I realized how many had been taken, I finally understood God's plan. He was giving me a second chance. That's why He led me here. To save the lost. New Eden is my redemption.
And J.D. was offering a simple explanation that only required faith in a higher power. That's what brought people to New Eden. They stayed because he had proof. Was it just another Virgin Mary on a grilled cheese sandwich? Or was it a genuine glimpse of the Almighty? I have to admit, I started to wonder if there really were forces at work, forces beyond my comprehension.
What other explanation is there?
J.D. had me reeling. My skepticism was on the ropes. So he invited me to stay, as long as I wanted. I questioned everything. Was the fall divine intervention? Then, miraculously, as I wrestled with that question, I was saved by Luther, who told me J.D.'s story was a lie. For all J.D.'s talk about faith, he had none for his followers. After all, faith that has to be enforced isn't faith, it's dogma. And dogma breeds defiance. Such was the case in New Eden. Luther's motive was simple. He wanted me to help him escape. Wasn't sure he could make it out there alone. I knew it was a risk trusting Luther. Edward Hanley taught astronomy at Rutgers. J.D. had forbidden contact with the outside world, so Edward kept his hobby a secret, until Edward saw something that raised doubts.
If God smote technology, why'd he leave a working satellite up there?
This changes everything. Edward was punished for questioning J.D., the worst sin possible in New Eden. The satellite not only proved some technology survived, it proved J.D. was intolerant of anything threatening his beliefs. What it didn't prove was that the man was a murderer. But when I saw the remains of that star chart, I knew.
Keep it safe. It's my only evidence.
Edward didn't escape like J.D. said. He'd been caught, his evidence confiscated.
Saw J.D. burn it last night. Probably killed Edward, just to shut him up.
Truth was, Luther's evidence required a leap of faith just like J.D.'s. A light in the sky and a burned piece of paper wasn't much to go on. I finally saw J.D. for what he was. A grieving father who'd convinced himself the fall was a divine event.
They're getting away!
Because the truth meant he was alone, without answers, like the rest of us. And that's a scary place to be. J.D. had the faith of his followers, and since I had forbidden knowledge, I was now the enemy.
I warned you this day would come. There is a demon among us. A deceiver who will destroy everything we've built. And his name is Shoemaker.
I think it was Emerson who said, "To different minds, the same world is heaven and hell." When I first arrived in New Eden, I was entranced by the beauty, the serenity. 48 hours later, my frame of mind had changed dramatically. JD hadn't just brought me in to help him sell the virtues of New Eden. He wanted to convert me, turn me into a true believer, not just to grow his flock, but to control his flock. The more who believed his story, the more real it became, to him and his followers. I think JD deluded himself into believing he was chosen, and that's what made him truly dangerous. Luther told others about the satellite, but no one else wanted to hear the truth. And why would they? JD's story gave them hope of salvation. All those true believers, I knew I couldn't take away their faith, but I could take away JD's ability to deceive more followers. Maybe it was my own foolish pride, maybe it was just those earrings. I couldn't resist trying to save Abby. Should have known, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Luther and I both knew damn well what would happen if they caught us. Sometimes fear is a good thing. It pushes you beyond your own bounds, to a place where 1,000,000 years of survival instincts kick in. Where you don't have to think about your actions. Where something higher takes over, spurs you to victory, if that's what's meant to be. I was hoping to loosen JD's stranglehold on his flock. All I really did was strengthen his grip. No more demons in the cornfield. I gave JD a real flesh-and-blood villain to unite his flock against, and he gave me all the evidence I needed to call him my enemy. JD proclaimed it a battle between good and evil. Who was good? Who was evil? As with everything, that depends entirely on your point of view. First few weeks on the road, I found comfort in human contact, relished the chance to silence my own thoughts, hear other people's stories. But leaving Pennsylvania, I started to question my approach. Luther had no family, nowhere to go. Said he'd always wanted to see Seattle, suggested we make the trip together. It made sense, safety in numbers, but I convinced him we were safer splitting up, that catching me was probably JD's #1 priority.
Thanks for getting me out of that nut house. Hope you find what you're looking for, Russ.
Truth was, I was looking for a lighter load. Didn't want to be responsible for Luther. Didn't want that burden. Didn't need others' problems. Had enough of my own. I stayed out of sight, put on blinders, focused on my goal. My family needed me to be selfish, but I was still conflicted. Was still living off the dregs of civilization, but there was a certain freedom I started to enjoy. For years, I kept a stack of books next to my bed to read someday. With no deadlines or distractions, I was finally catching up. From a distance, you would have thought I'd actually assimilated. Still had some hard lessons to learn, though, like never leaving food uncovered. The fall didn't seem to have any physical effect on animals. But with so few people around, they became bolder, less afraid of us. Never had rabies before, didn't even know if that raccoon was infected. But I couldn't risk it. I needed help. Unfortunately, the first place I came to was a ghost town. If you thought healthcare was bad before the fall, imagine when all the medicine ran out. Food can always be found if you know where to look, but pharmaceuticals, there was only a finite amount. In Aurora, somebody'd cornered the market on every bandage and medication known to man. It was everything I'd been trying to avoid, but there I was, caught up in somebody else's problems.